Where? Move it, man. This isn't a loading dock for people like you. The voice cut sharp across the polished plaza, echoing off the glass walls of the headquarters. Conversation stalled. Shoes slowed. Heads turned. The CEO stood at the top of the steps, flanked by two executives, his tailored suit catching the sunlight like armor. His gaze locked onto the black delivery driver stepping out of a white van, a secured document case in his hand. The driver paused, one foot still on the curb, absorbing the tone before the words. "I have a scheduled delivery," he said, voice even, almost quiet. "Requires a signature." The CEO let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "A delivery? Here?" He glanced at his colleague, smirking. "You lost, or just hoping nobody notices?" A few employees near the entrance exchanged looks. Someone lifted a phone. The driver stepped forward, calm, measured, offering the case slightly. "It's time-sensitive, sir." The CEO didn't touch it. His eyes skimmed the uniform, the van, the man's. When? Face lingering just long enough to say everything he didn't say out loud. "Security," he called, without looking away. "Let's verify whatever this is." Two guards moved in, radios crackling softly. The air shifted. The driver didn't flinch. He adjusted his grip on the case, eyes steady. "I was instructed to deliver directly to you," he said. The CEO scoffed, stepping closer, invading space. "Instructed? By who?" "You people always have a story." A quiet murmur rippled through the small crowd. More phones appeared. The driver exhaled slowly, almost inaudible. "Sir, delaying this delivery could have serious consequences." For a split second, silence hung. Then the CEO laughed again, louder this time, turning it into a show. "Consequences? From you?" He gestured broadly, inviting attention. "Someone's been watching too many movies." The guards stepped closer, forming a loose barrier. One reached toward the case. The driver didn't pull back, didn't argue. His eyes moved, briefly, scanning reflections in. Ports to. The glass, the growing crowd, the phones. He looked back at the CEO, voice low. "I'd reconsider, sir." The CEO's smile hardened, something colder settling beneath it. Not a chance. A siren wailed faintly in the distance, swallowed by the city's hum. The circle tightened. The cameras steadied. And in the center of it all, the driver stood still, unreadable, as the CEO unknowingly stepped closer to a mistake he couldn't undo. A breeze slipped between the buildings, lifting the edge of the driver's jacket. He adjusted it slightly, revealing nothing, hiding everything. One of the guards hesitated, just a fraction, eyes flicking to the case again. "You sure about this?" he muttered, barely audible. The CEO didn't answer. He didn't need to. His expression said enough, sharp, certain, dismissive. The driver's gaze lingered for a moment longer, then settled into stillness again. Somewhere, a camera zoomed in, capturing every detail. The moment stretched, thin as wire, ready to snap. And still, one realized who was really in control. Not yet, not close. The plaza didn't empty after the confrontation. It thickened. Downtown Chicago moved the way it always did, fast, impatient, expensive. But right here, in front of the glass tower of Halberg and Pierce Capital, time dragged just enough for people to notice something was off. The building itself rose like a mirror, 30 floors of sharp edges and tinted authority. Inside, floors of analysts, brokers, and executives were preparing for what had been whispered all week, a merger, rumored to cross $2 billion. Phones had been ringing non-stop since sunrise. Assists moved like clockwork. Legal teams were already on standby. And at the center of it all stood a man who believed he owned every inch of it. Richard Halberg didn't just run the firm, he dominated it. His reputation wasn't subtle. He was known for cutting deals the way surgeons cut tissue, precise, cold, and without hesitation. Employees didn't just respect him, they feared him. He had a habit of dismissing people mid-sentence, of looking past them as if they were already irrelevant, especially the ones he decided didn't belong. The two executives beside him mirrored that same energy, nodding along, watching the delivery driver like he was an inconvenience that needed to be erased. But the driver didn't fit the role they'd already assigned him. His name was Marcus Reed. His uniform was spotless pressed, clean, deliberate. Not a wrinkle out of place. The company logo on his chest looked almost too new, like it had been placed there for a reason. His posture was straight but relaxed, shoulders loose, weight balanced. Nothing about him suggested urgency, even though everything about the situation demanded it. Behind him, the delivery van sat quietly at the curb, white. Standard issue at first glance, but too clean, no dents, no faded paint, tires polished. Even the windows tinted just enough reflected the street instead of revealing anything inside. Why? It didn't match the chaos of city deliveries. It looked maintained, controlled. Marcus's eyes moved, not nervously, but deliberately. He clocked the security cameras mounted above the entrance, the reflection of the street in the glass panels, the positioning of the guards, the spacing between the growing crowd. Even the executives behind Hallberg, who shifted slightly under his gaze without knowing why. He said very little, and when he did, every word landed exactly where it needed to. Around them, the bystanders had settled into something between curiosity and anticipation. A group of junior analysts lingered near the revolving doors, whispering just low enough to avoid being heard. "That's him," one muttered. "Hallberg. He does this all the time." Another nodded, eyes flicking between Marcus and the CEO. "Yeah, but this feels different." On the sidewalk, pedestrians slowed. Some pretended to check messages while angling their phones just right. Others didn't bother pretending at all. Poor. Recording had already started. Across the street, a man in a dark coat stood still, watching. Not filming, just watching. The city noise pressed in-car horns in the distance, the low rumble of traffic, the occasional echo of a siren bouncing between buildings. Closer, the static crackle of a security radio cut through the air. One of the guards shifted his stance, adjusting his grip near his belt. Marcus didn't react to any of it. Instead, he glanced down at his watch. Just once. A small movement, easy to miss, but intentional. When he looked back up, nothing in his expression had changed, but something in the atmosphere had. Like a clock had started ticking, and only he could hear it. Near the entrance, an assistant stepped halfway outside, hesitating as she noticed the scene. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She checked it, frowned, then looked toward Hallberg but didn't interrupt. Not yet. The delay hung in the air, stretching thinner with every passing second. And still, no one fully. Ports, too. Understood what they were holding up. ID. Now. The guard's voice came sharper this time, closer, stepping fully into Marcus Reed's space. The loose circle around them tightened another inch, the air pressing in with it. Marcus didn't hesitate. With slow, deliberate movement, he set the document case against his leg and reached into his pocket. No sudden motions, no resistance. He handed over a clean, uncreased identification card, followed by a folded authorization sheet. "Delivery authorization," he said evenly. "Direct recipient required." The second guard took the papers, scanning them quickly, eyes narrowing as he flipped through the details. There was a pause, brief, but noticeable. "It looks official," the guard muttered. Richard Hallberg didn't even lean in. "Looks can be printed," he said flatly. "You can order anything online these days." Marcus watched him, expression unchanged. "There's also a sealed document inside," Marcus added, nodding slightly toward the case. "Confidential. Requires your signature." The word confidential seemed to hang for a second, heavier than the rest. Hallberg scoffed, stepping closer again, his shoes clicking against the stone with controlled irritation. "You expect me to believe someone sends a courier?" He gestured vaguely, eyes sweeping over Marcus again. "With something that important?" A faint murmur rippled through the bystanders. Marcus didn't respond to the tone. He simply opened the case. Inside sat a thick envelope, matte black, stamped with bold lettering. "Confidential." The seal was intact, edges sharp, untouched. The guard holding the documents glanced at it, then back at Hallberg. "Sir, we should at least..." Hallberg waved him off without looking. "Number. This is exactly how scams work. Pressure, urgency, official-looking paperwork." His eyes locked back onto Marcus. "Who put you up to this?" Marcus closed the case gently. "This delivery is time-sensitive," he said, voice steady. "It requires your direct..." acknowledgement. Halberg tilted his head slightly, studying him now, but not with curiosity, with suspicion sharpened into something personal. "And what happens," Halberg said slowly, "if I don't play along?" Marcus held his gaze. "There may be contractual complications." The words were calm, almost quiet, but they landed. For a split second, the space between them felt different. Then Halberg smiled again, thin and dismissive. "Contractual complications," he repeated, almost amused. "You hear that?" he said to the executives beside him. "He's threatening me now." One of them chuckled under his breath. "This is fraud," Halberg continued, louder now, for the benefit of the growing audience. Plain and simple. Phones were fully raised now. No one pretended anymore. Near the entrance, a woman in a navy blazer leaned toward her colleague, whispering, "Why isn't he nervous?" Her colleague shook his head slightly. "Yeah, something's off." Marcus remained still, hands resting lightly at his. "Ports to, sides. I've fulfilled my obligation by arriving on time," he said. "The responsibility now rests with you." The phrasing was precise, measured. Halberg's expression hardened. "Detain him," he said immediately. The word cut through everything. The guards hesitated just for a fraction of a second before stepping in closer. One reached toward Marcus's arm. "Sir, we're going to need you to stay right here while we verify." Marcus didn't pull away, didn't resist. His arm stayed relaxed as the guard's hand made contact, light but firm. "Understood," Marcus said quietly. But something about his silence changed. It wasn't passive anymore. It was deliberate, heavy, the kind of silence that made people second-guess themselves without knowing why. Across the street, movement flickered. Subtle, easy to miss. Marcus's eyes shifted just briefly toward the reflection in the glass facade. Not directly across. Never obvious. But enough. A man in a dark coat stood still near the curb, watching. Not. Why? Recording. Not moving. Just watching. Marcus's gaze returned forward. The guard tightened his grip slightly, uncertain now. "You got anyone we can call?" the guard asked, softer this time. Marcus didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was lower. "They're already aware." The words slipped out like fact, not warning. The guard frowned. Halberg rolled his eyes. "Of course they are," he said. "That's what they all say." But the confidence didn't land the same way this time. Not completely, because now people were noticing things. The earpiece small, nearly invisible, tucked just behind Marcus's ear. The way he stood, not like someone being detained, but like someone waiting. The way he wasn't looking at Halberg anymore. He was looking past him, as if the outcome had already been decided somewhere else. A breeze moved through the plaza again, carrying the faint hum of the city and something else. Anticipation. The moment stretched further, tension tightening like a wire pulled to. Par. And somewhere beneath it all, one quiet truth settled in. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. Something bigger had already started. The guard's grip tightened. Not aggressive at first, just enough to signal control. But when Marcus didn't react, didn't argue, didn't even look at him, the grip shifted, firmer, more deliberate. Like the guard needed to prove something to himself as much as anyone else. "Stay right there," he said, voice lower now, but edged. Marcus remained still, hands relaxed at his sides, fingers visible, posture unchanged. He didn't pull away, didn't resist. But he didn't comply in the way they expected either. He simply existed in place, unmoved. Richard Halberg stepped forward again, feeding off the moment, his voice rising just enough for the crowd to hear. "This is exactly what I was talking about," he announced, gesturing toward Marcus like he was presenting evidence. "You get someone wandering in here with fake paperwork, trying to push their way into a ports to secure building. I'm not wandering," Marcus said calmly. Halberg ignored him. "And suddenly, it's urgent, it's confidential. It's all these big words meant to scare people into not asking questions." A few people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Someone muttered, "That's not what he said," but too quietly to matter. Halberg's eyes narrowed slightly, voice dropping just enough to carry a sharper edge. "You people think if you dress it up nice enough, no one's gonna check. There it was. Not loud, not explicit, but it landed. A woman near the front of the crowd frowned, lowering her phone for a second before raising it again, more deliberately this time. Marcus didn't react to the words. "I am authorized to be here," he said, tone even, "and delaying this process will have consequences." Hallberg let out a short laugh, shaking his head. "Consequences," he repeated. "You keep saying that like it means something." "It does," Marcus replied. The simplicity of it seemed to irritate. "Why?" Hallberg more than anything else. "Open the case," Hallberg snapped, turning to the guards. The closer guard hesitated, glancing at Marcus. "Sir!" He said I don't care what he said, Hallberg cut in. "Open it." Marcus's eyes shifted to the guard. "That case is legally protected," he said quietly. "It requires authorization before it's opened." The guard's hand hovered over the latch. "You're not in a position to make demands," Hallberg said sharply. "Open it." There was a brief pause, then the latch clicked. The sound was small, almost insignificant, but in the silence that followed, it echoed. The case opened. Inside, instead of anything suspicious, there were documents. Thick, organized, precise. Stamped pages, layered folders, tabs marked with codes and dates. Official. The guard blinked, flipping the top page carefully. "Sir." "This looks..." Hallberg barely glanced at it. "Fake," he said immediately. "All of it." The guard hesitated, turning another page. "Government seals." "Why?" "Signatures. Dense legal text." "This doesn't look fake," he murmured, almost to himself. Hallberg stepped closer, irritation sharpening his features. "You think I haven't seen a forged document before?" he snapped. "Close it!" Around them, the crowd had grown thicker. Phones were fully raised now, steady, focused. Near the entrance, 2 employees exchanged uneasy looks. "This is not good," one whispered. Across the street, the black SUV sat idling, engine low, almost silent beneath the city noise. The tinted windows revealed nothing, but the presence of it felt heavier now. Inside the building, a security radio crackled louder than before. "Repeat, we're getting multiple calls from upstairs. Legal is asking." The voice cut off. Marcus stood exactly where he had been, the open case between them, his gaze steady. Hallberg waved a dismissive hand. "Close it and get him out of here," he said. "I'm done wasting time." The guard didn't move right away. His eyes flicked from the documents. When? To Marcus. To Hallberg. Uncertainty. Marcus spoke again, quieter this time. "This is your last chance to correct this." The words didn't rise. They settled. Hallberg stared at him for a second, then laughed. "Not loudly this time. Just enough. You're done," he said. And just like that, the line was crossed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. Across the street, one of the SUV doors shifted open, and everything that followed was already in motion. The vibration was subtle. So subtle no one heard it over the city noise, over the low murmur of the crowd, over the distant hum of traffic bouncing between buildings. But Marcus felt it, a single pulse in his pocket. He didn't reach for it, didn't glance down. But something in his posture shifted, barely noticeable, a slight adjustment in his shoulders, a quiet settling, like a clock had just confirmed what he already knew. Across the street, the black SUV responded almost in sync. One door cracked open, then another. Not rushed, not. Why? Dramatic. Just enough movement to register if you were paying attention. A few sharply dressed individuals stepped out, their silhouettes cutting clean against the glare of the street. They didn't approach, not yet. They stood near the curb, watching with the kind of stillness that didn't belong to bystanders. Back at the entrance, the energy had changed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't obvious, but it was there. Inside the building, behind the glass, something was unraveling. Phones that had been glued to ears suddenly pulled away. Screens lit up with notifications. A man in a gray suit stopped mid-conversation, staring at his device, his expression tightening. Another turned sharply toward the elevators, speaking faster, urgency creeping into his voice. "No, that's not possible. Check it again. Why is the system locking us out? Get legal on the line, now." The rhythm inside had broken. But outside, Halberg stood rooted in place, completely unaware. His attention remained locked on. Reports to Marcus, his jaw set, his authority still performing for the audience that had grown thicker by the second. Near the front of the crowd, a man leaned closer to his phone screen, zooming in on the documents still visible inside the open case. "Wait," he said under his breath. "That's that's federal." The woman beside him frowned, leaning in. "Are you sure?" "Yeah," he said, adjusting the angle. "Look at the signature block." Another phone lifted beside them, capturing the same image. Whispers spread, low at first, then building. "That doesn't look fake. Why would someone fake something like that? This is weird." Marcus didn't acknowledge any of it. He simply spoke. "These documents relate to a pending acquisition," he said, voice calm, steady enough to cut through the noise without raising it. $2 billion. The number landed differently. Even Halberg's expression flickered just for a second. "It requires immediate execution," Marcus continued. "Failure to sign within. Reports to. The designated window triggers an automatic transfer of controlling interest." The words were precise, clinical, no emotion, just fact. Halberg scoffed again, but it didn't hit the same. "Now it's $2 billion?" he said, shaking his head. "You're just stacking lies at this point." But there was a hesitation now. Small, almost invisible. Marcus held his gaze. "This is not a negotiation," he said. Behind Halberg, the glass doors pushed open abruptly. "Sir." His assistant hurried down the steps, heels clicking too fast, breath slightly uneven. Her phone was still in her hand, screen lit, messages flooding in. "We need you inside," she said urgently, lowering her voice as she reached him. "Legal's been trying to reach you. Something's wrong with the system there," saying. Halberg cut her off with a sharp gesture. "Not now," he snapped. "Can't you see I'm dealing with something?" She hesitated, glancing past him at Marcus, then at the open case, then back at her phone. "It's about the WAD." "Deal," she pressed, quieter now. "They said I said not now." The finality in his tone shut her down. She stepped back, uncertain, but didn't leave. Marcus watched the exchange without reacting. Then he spoke again. "There is federal oversight attached to this contract. That did it." The words didn't raise in volume, but they shifted everything. Across the street, the SUV doors opened fully this time. Not partially, not subtly, fully. The individuals standing beside it straightened, their attention sharpening, their stillness breaking just enough to signal movement was coming. The crowd felt it. No one said it out loud, but it was there. Something was about to change. And this time, it wasn't going to wait for permission. The first agent didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Step back. 2 words, calm and controlled, but they cut through the noise like a blade. The guards reacted before they even processed it, loosening their grip on Marcus almost instinctively. The crowd. Reports to. Shifted, phones angling higher as 3 individuals crossed the street with measured precision, their pace unhurried but undeniable. Dark suits. No visible badges, yet everything about them said authority. Richard Halberg turned, irritation already forming. What is this now? The lead agent reached into his jacket, flashing identification just long enough. "Federal Compliance Division," he said. "We need immediate clarification of what's happening here." The tone wasn't aggressive. It was final. Halberg's expression didn't collapse all at once, but it cracked, just slightly. "There's been a misunderstanding," Halberg said quickly, adjusting his posture, smoothing his jacket, as if that alone could reset the moment. "This individual," Marcus read. The agent interrupted. The name landed, not loudly, but with weight. The agent turned toward Marcus, his tone shifting, subtle but unmistakable. "Mr. Red. Respect. Clear. Direct. No hesitation." "And your designation?" the second agent asked. "Well." Already reaching for the open case. Marcus met his gaze. "Senior Compliance Officer. Federal Oversight Unit." The words settled over the crowd like a shock wave, a sharp inhale somewhere. A quiet "wait, what?" from behind a phone. Halberg blinked. Once, then again. The second agent flipped through the documents with practiced efficiency, scanning seals, signatures, embedded codes. His expression didn't change, but his pace did. Faster, sharper. "It's all here," he said. Fully authenticated. The lead agent nodded once, then looked back at Halberg. These documents were delivered under a time-sensitive federal mandate, he said. Your signature was required within a fixed execution window. Halberg's mouth opened slightly, then closed again. His confidence, once effortless, now felt forced, stitched together. I wasn't informed, he said quickly. There was no prior this wasn't communicated properly. If there's been a delay, that's a breakdown on your end, not mine. The agent didn't respond immediately. He simply looked at him. Then, slowly, he arrived on time. The words landed heavier than any accusation. Halberg's assistant stepped closer again, her voice barely contained now. Sir, legal just confirmed I'm handling it, Halberg snapped. But the edge in his voice had changed. It wasn't control anymore. It was strain. Marcus closed the case with a soft click. The signing window has expired, he said. No anger, no satisfaction, just fact. Halberg turned to him sharply. That's not how this works. It is, Marcus replied. Silence followed. Inside the building, movement turned frantic, people rushing, phones pressed tight. Someone nearly collided with the glass doors trying to get out. Voices overlapped in rising urgency. The transfer clause. We're locked out of the authorization system. Who approved this? The structure that had felt so solid minutes ago was shifting. Fast. Outside, the agent stepped slightly apart, creating space but also defining. Why? It. Control had changed hands. Halberg looked around, as if searching for something support, authority, anything that still belonged to him. But the crowd wasn't on his side anymore. They were watching him, recording him. And for the first time, he looked like someone who didn't belong where he was standing. Marcus adjusted his sleeve slightly, calm as ever. The moment didn't need anything else. It had already turned. The pen came out first. Not a weapon, not raised voices. Just a pen clicked once, precise in a small black notebook in the agent's hand. Time of incident, he said calmly, glancing at his watch. Document everything. The words carried more weight than anything that had been shouted before. Another agent stepped forward, already speaking into a device clipped near his collar. Unlawful detention confirmed. Possible interference with a federal operation. Flag for review. The phrases sounded clinical, but they landed like consequences. Richard Halberg didn't move first. He just stood there, eyes shifting between the agents, the crowd, the phone still pointed at him. His earlier certainty was gone, replaced by something tighter, something unraveling. This is being blown out of proportion, he said, forcing steadiness into his voice. We can resolve this internally. No one responded, because it wasn't internal anymore. Behind him, the glass doors burst open again, but this time it wasn't assistants, board members. 3 of them, moving fast, expressions already set in anger that didn't need explanation. One of them held a tablet, screen-lit, with cascading numbers. What did you do? The first one demanded, stopping just short of the steps. Halberg turned, relief flashing for a fraction of a second. There's been a miscommunication. You missed the execution window. Another cut in, voice sharp. The deal is gone. The word hung there. Gone. A silence followed, but not the quiet kind. The heavy kind. Inside, through the glass, screens flickered. When? Numbers dropping. Fast. Stocks reacting, someone muttered behind the board members. It's already leaking. The third board member stepped closer, lowering his voice, but not enough to hide the anger. Do you understand what you just cost this company? Halberg opened his mouth again, but nothing came out this time. Because there wasn't anything left to say. One of the agents turned slightly, addressing him directly. You're now part of an active investigation, he said. You'll be required to remain available for questioning. The words were steady, final. Another agent shifted toward the guards. You as well. Step aside. The guards exchanged a quick look, uncertainty replacing authority as they moved back. Phones were still recording. Every angle, every reaction. A woman in the crowd whispered, "This is insane." Her voice caught somewhere between shock and satisfaction. Another person shook their head slowly. He had every chance. Marcus Red stood just off center of it all. Why? The case now closed at his side. unmoved, unchanged. He looked at Halberg not with anger, not with triumph, but with the same calm he'd carried from the beginning. "I gave you multiple opportunities to resolve this," he said. "That was it. No lecture, no emphasis, just truth." Halberg didn't meet his eyes. He couldn't. The agents continued documenting, voices low, controlled, methodical. Around them, the story was already escaping, uploaded, shared, spreading faster than anyone there could contain. A moment earlier, Halberg had controlled everything in that space. Now, he was just another subject in someone else's report. Marcus adjusted his sleeve again, the same small movement as before. Then he turned. No announcement, no final look back. He walked past the crowd, past the phones, past the tension that was no longer his to carry. And this time, most people didn't even notice him leave. The plaza slowly began to breathe again, but differently now. Quieter, heavier, because the shift had already happened. And somewhere beneath the noise, beneath the fallout and the consequences still unfolding, one truth remained. Power doesn't always announce itself, but disrespect has a way of revealing exactly who holds it.